Activated by Temperance Spirits. Temperance Spirits, creating a space for change.
Hello, Oilers fans, Canucks fans, and fans of the SDPN. How are you doing? I'm not having a great night, obviously. I'm joined by Sam from Game Over Vancouver, who is probably having a much better night than I am.
Hey everyone. Hi, Dennis. I am having a shockingly good night because I had prepared myself. If you saw my tweets from after the first game, I was like, Canucks are going to get shelled on Saturday because I'm trash talking too much, and also because they always lose when I'm on. So I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Like, if we started the season before game one, no one in either fan base, I think, would have predicted this outcome. The first game obviously was very shocking, but even the second game, like, something is wrong with the Oilers right now, and Vancouver is way better than people have given them like any credit for leading up to this season. Obviously some great additions in there, but yeah, this season has started in a very different way, to say the least. But before we get started on the show, we do have a sponsor here, the SDPN and Game Over Sports Edmonton. Welcome to the Edmonton Oilers 2023-2024 regular season. Game Over Edmonton is pleased to announce the title sponsor for our season, Temperance Spirits, Edmonton's preferred non-alcoholic beverage retailer. Temperance curates a vast selection of local, craft, non-alcoholic options. Choose from a selection of beers, wines, mocktails, and spirits. We believe that a social lifestyle does not require the consumption of alcohol. To celebrate Sober October, enjoy 10% off some of our favorite beverages. Let's raise a toast to being sober this October. You can find Temperance Spirits online at www.temperance-spirits.com and follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Temperance Spirits. I've had a couple of their drinks already, the Palomas, the Mules, a couple of IPAs and other ales. They're delicious. Gotta check them out. I don't know if you can get them in Vancouver. Hopefully you can.
I don't know. I'll have to go look for them. Sounds pretty cool.
But yeah, let's get right into it. This season, I think the Oilers, after a very, very intense postseason where they were quite possibly like the biggest obstacle for the Vegas Golden Knights in getting to the Cup, they have severely taken a step back. Meanwhile, the Canucks obviously were penciled in. I think personally, I would have penciled them in around that wild card area.
Yeah.
I think the top three in the Pacific, they were pretty like they were penned in, right? The top 1, 2, 3, Vegas, Edmonton, LA, whichever order you wanted to put them in. I think the Canucks might be making a push for it because I really found like no flaws in their game plan tonight.
I have been bitten too many times to commit to that much optimism 2 games in. But I will say that towards the end of the game, with like 5 seconds left, I had a minute where actually maybe it's like 10 seconds left. I actually felt stressed out. I feel like for the last few years, I would have been like, for sure, Edmonton is tying this up. Then they're going to go ahead. We're going to lose in overtime, like whatever. But I was actually stressed out because I felt hope, which
hope is alive.
Never feel with the Canucks. Ever.
Hope is alive in the city of Vancouver. I mean, after last season in Vancouver, right? The firing, JT Miller, the whole contract disputes, and the captaincy. So many questions that went unanswered. It is wild to see them start the season up 2-0. Absolutely drumming Edmonton. I mean, that's 12 goals, right?
12 goals.
Oh my goodness. And
they only had what, 16 shots tonight?
Yeah, 16 shots to 41.
41. It's 41-16.
It's even worse than I thought.
I'm sorry.
there is just like Oilers hockey has always been high event, right? And last season, Zach, Avery, and I, we've all come to love and hate the amount of heart medication we have to take when we watch this team. But this year is so different. Like, I'm finding myself in these last two games being heavily disappointed, and it's not just one or two players who have had a bad game. These two games have kind of shown the entire defensive core to be a liability. Stuart Skinner tonight, another 750 save percentage, which was the same as the last two, or the last game with both Skinner and Campbell. I really hope that doesn't continue going forward, because we're not going to win a lot of games at a 750 save percentage. And against Casey DeSmith, like, he played lights out, and that's usually not something you want to say when you mention DeSmith.
Yeah. I was shocked. Like, this is something I would have expected if they had Demko in net, but it was, I mean, kind of, for me, the most shocking thing about tonight is even if they hadn't won tonight, I think I would have been relatively happy with the way they played. Like, notwithstanding the shots on goal, I thought the Canucks actually, like you said, had very few flaws in their game tonight. They actually looked, like last year, if somebody scored on them within the first minute, the rest of the game would have been a write-off. Like, you could have been like, Oilers scored in the first minute, this game is done. Like, they are just going to collapse on themselves. They have no resilience. They have no fight back. And this year, like tonight, even if they had somehow lost that game, I would have thought, you know what? They had some fight. They had some good habits. They actually played a structured game. Like, I don't know who this team is. I'm shocked.
Another thing to point out, Edmonton had this dominating power play last year, one of the best power plays in history. And they had 7 power plays tonight and scored on 2 of them. Like, Vancouver's penalty kill has been amazing. I mean, some of the defensive liabilities we saw last season, I mean, one of them is wearing a jersey with a letter on it. It is amazing to see this shift in the momentum for the Canucks. And a couple of names that I really have never considered before in Canucks jerseys. Like, I thought Noah Juleson, he did take 1 penalty tonight, but I thought he played amazing. The other, who was his pairing? Hirose, I think?
Yeah, Hirose.
That's the third defensive pairing, right?
Yeah.
I thought they did amazing against some very, very intense offense in McDavid, Kane, and Brown. Like, they were hemmed in for about 2 minutes, ended up taking a penalty, but that not getting scored on that is unthinkable for a third line defensive core. And I don't want to hype you up too much, because like you said, every sentence, I can feel the hope. I can see it welling up in your eyes. I don't want to get you started on it. But the Canucks are a very, very good team.
For now.
I want to talk about the Oilers a little bit now. I mean, that might have been the extent of my Canucks knowledge all sent out there in the last 10 minutes. It was well done. The Canucks are a good team, but I do want to say the Oilers are probably not playing their best hockey. The defensive core, like I mentioned, they do not look stable at all. Ekholm is coming back from a kind of practice injury, so something that he didn't play any preseason games. It wasn't really anything harsh, but it just took a longer time for him to recover. So for a first game back, he had some flaws, especially getting out muscled on I think the Sam Lafferty goal. That was a little bit disappointing to see. I fear the fact that he might have been rushed back, but having him really, really stabilizes Bouchard, and Bouchard has not been good this first 2 games. Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci also trash. I don't know what to do with this defensive core right now.
I mean, you can ask Avery, but that's that's kind of been my view of the Oilers defense for the last few years. It's kind of hard for me to see, and I don't watch them that often other than when the Canucks play them, but from the outside looking in, even for the last few years, you kind of look at that team and you think, like, what's the game plan here? Like, why this defensive core is not good. And like, there's so much money tied up in it. Darnell Nurse makes more money than Cale Makar.
Please don't remind us. That's our OEL. I've seen it in the chat. That is our OEL right now. And when Nurse is playing effectively, he is a pretty good defender. He can get up there a little bit and play on the offensive side. He can be like a solid stalwart defensively. But some would say it's being tied to Cody Ceci. That is supposed to be our shutdown pair. And Nurse Ceci was the one on the ice for the like atrocious, like horrific, absolutely inexcusable 2-on-0 where Pettersson and Studnicka scored. Who is this guy? Like how many minutes does he play a night? I can't believe the amount of leeway that they've had as a pairing. Like, people have been clamoring for Nurse Bouchard lessening Cody Ceci's minutes, I think, especially during the playoffs, maybe demoting him to the third defensive pairing. But you still need bodies to replace it. And Philip Broberg, who's doing a good job, but he's in sheltered minutes on the third pairing. I'm not sure he's able to step up into that like top two defensive pairing role. The game plan has always been for the Edmonton Oilers to get up on the ice quick, rush down your opponent before they can get back into position, and have your defense kind of pitch in, pinch a little bit, but have one guy back. At least if it goes back the other way, it's going to be like a 2-on-1 or something like that. And you pray that whoever's in net that night is going to be able to stop it. That has kind of changed because I'm not sure if this is well known outside of the Edmonton market. The Oilers are trying a new defensive system right now. Supposedly, they're moving into more of a zone style defense, and it doesn't feel like it's conducive to the way that the Oilers go on offense, right? Zone defense, I've seen a lot more guys standing there, just kind of waiting for coverage. And the way that the game is played now, it's such a movement-focused game. Like, players that are succeeding are speedy, they're crafty with the puck, they're able to do like quick little tap passes and redirections into the net. And the way that the Oilers are trying to counteract that with a zone defense is just not working. Like, what did you think about the way that they played on the back end tonight specifically?
I mean, I think you nailed it. They look like that actually explains a lot, because to me it seemed like a team they're just like not in the groove yet, and the fact that they're transitioning to it that makes a lot more sense. Because as much as I say I've never been a big fan of that blue line. It's not just like, oh, they're not good enough tonight. Like, they actually just looked out of sorts.
Yeah, like the way that I think defense and offense transition into each other has become so important in today's NHL, and just not having that connection, it's inexcusable. Like, as part of the coaching staff, it isn't just the defensive side of the game and the offensive side of the game, and we play these two different modes, and whenever we switch, we just toggle it into the other way and everyone get into position before we start running our offense. It's not like that anymore. This game is so fluid. And when you have an offense that is stymied by going against their natural flow of things, you get the type of goal scoring that we saw tonight from the Oilers, which was all crash and bang, like right in front of the net, making it messy in front of DeSmith. I don't think that's the Oilers' game plan. And they did a good enough job. They had 3 goals. But that's not the way that they're built to play. Obviously, the Canucks did a great job again defensively. It looked like they were trying to swim through molasses. Like the defense and the way that the forwards were able to kind of collapse and really take away those slot opportunities. I found that the Canucks were stymieing pretty much all of Edmonton's offense, except for the few times it was on the power play.
Yeah, to be honest with you, for me, the most shocking point was when they were up 5-3. I kind of thought, like, this is it. Like, this is where it's going to happen, and I can live with it. And then it just never did.
I saw the tweet, right? Like, it was, I'm going to pull it up. It's 34 shots to 15. It's going to be a 5-on-3 for the Oilers. This is the time, right? Like, this is how they're going to tie it up. The NHL is scripted. Didn't happen.
And, you know, I thought if they weren't going to score on the 5-on-3, they'd score on the 5-on-4. And then, you know, David interferes with Elias Pettersson, and that's it.
And I hate talking about reffing and how it like skewed this game, and you know, the refs suck and everything. I thought the refs were not the best tonight, but they were consistent. They were consistently bad. They were consistently bad.
That's true. That's marginally better than inconsistently bad.
Yeah, it's the I think the trip. No, it was one of the interference calls. Oh, I think it was on McDavid early in the second period, one that we scored on. Someone interfered with McDavid, but on the replay, like, McDavid's arm kind of wraps around the Canuck player. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's not the best call. But the interference on McDavid to end that 5-on-3, I think that evened it up. It was just bad both ways. Like,
let me ask you this. This is like neither a Canucks or Oilers question, more of a general interest question. I thought last year was maybe one of the worst seasons of NHL reffing overall across the season that I've ever seen. Yeah. Do you think they will be worse this year?
I think the way that the NHL does referee management is so weird, right? Like, there's no accountability at all. If you look at the NBA, they have accountability after games. Refs have to own up to the mistakes that they make. And if you do that, I think fans are typically a little bit more forgiving, and it sticks more in the ref's mind, right? Like, obviously, I don't have children, so this is all conjecture. But if someone is misbehaving, right, you kind of tell them and you teach them why that doesn't work. You know, you let them know the reason why this is not the best way to do things. With the NHL, refs are just allowed to do whatever the hell they want. And then with no accountability, they can work another game for the same team that they just tend to slight every now and then.
Yeah. And, you know, it's at some point, given the conversations around refereeing that happen after pretty much every game from every fan base, you'd think they would consider some kind of system like reports or making referees available. Something, anything to counter all the conversations that are going on about the state of refereeing.
Yeah, but let's be honest. We know the NHL won't do anything that tries to make the game more marketable and at least make them more understandable.
Yeah. Well, like, why would you? Why would you? Why would you need to do that?
This isn't a game that revolves around, you know, making money. Like, we don't need new young fans to revitalize our franchises. Yeah, we're totally off topic from the game.
Yeah, sorry, that was totally my fault.
No. Like, I went into a reffing rant. Look, chat, we're gonna be honest, right? The Oilers were expected to be a cup contender, and the way that they are playing right now, it just is not the case. I thought the top six, which was this touted thing, right? Like, Sam, if you looked on paper, the Oilers' top six is like undoubtedly one of the best in the NHL, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Oilers' whole thing is the best defense is a good offense, right? Like, that is the way this team is built.
if you're not playing in the defensive zone, you will naturally have less chances against. But even like with the addition of Connor Brown, who was touted as sort of like this Hyman light, like another guy who's really gritty in the boards and tries to keep these pucks alive and on hopefully Connor McDavid's stick, it didn't work. And I don't understand the way that this offense is run right now. It seems like the game plan is to go back to the blue line and to take a shot from there. And it might just be the way that Tocchet has structured the Canucks defense, but it just isn't the strong suit of the Oilers offense to be taking point shots and trying to get these tips in front. It's just not the way that this team is supposed to run. And I just wanted to ask, like, how obvious is it to someone who's like not watching the Oilers every day?
I mean, like I said to you, what I thought for me watching them, what struck me tonight was that they just seemed off normal. I mean, sorry, to be fair to the Oilers, this is kind of funny. We're like flipping roles. To be fair to the Oilers, they still dominated the Canucks shot-wise, right? Like it was 41-16. It's not like they were really fully struggling, but I didn't see as much of the takeover I felt that I normally see from in games that the Canucks play against the Oilers. I didn't have that moment of like, this is all going to fall apart.
It happens in bursts now, right? There was that really early burst of the first 5 minutes of the first period when it was jumping. I thought, you know what? Like, this is a full revenge game. I was penciling in like, oh yeah, it's going to be like 8-1 the other way. Maybe like 8-3. I'll give it a couple extra to you guys. Like, it was that energy. And I think the last 15 minutes of the first period, the Oilers mustered like one shot. It was like from 7 or 8 shots to 9
it
or
went
something
from
like that.
8-1 to 8-7 by the end of the first.
Insane. Like 15 minutes with one shot on goal. Everyone just took a nap after the first goal. And there were chances, but it was just like a download happened. Vancouver just downloaded all of the data from Edmonton's offense and shut everything down until like the second period. The second period, something must have happened in the locker room because they came out with a lot more jump. But as soon as that power play goal happened, we tied it back up. The rush the other way deflated the team again. And it sucks when you're watching the broadcast and you see the fans in Edmonton, which I'm a little bit biased, but I think Edmonton fans are some of the best in the NHL. They have so much energy. It just deflated the crowd. And the Oilers are a team that needs energy. Like they have to keep the pace. They have to pressure teams in order to make an impact. I thought the third line for Edmonton, sort of like a young guns line, was actually the best line of the game, even though they couldn't get on the score sheet.
Yeah, and sorry, just to jump back to your earlier point, did you find it surprising that they got off to this hot start? Like I was watching and I had tweets ready. I mean, my first tweet was, how long is it going to take for the Canucks to get their first shot on goal? And I was prepared to continue that bit, and it kind of fell apart. Like the Oilers took that bit apart for me, and I was surprised because given how salty the Oilers were after the 8-1 spanking, and especially McDavid feeling slighted by Thatcher Demko having to leave the ice to puke. I thought that getting up to that early start, that they would have kind of kept their foot on the pedal and run up the score a bit on the Canucks, given what happened. And it just seemed like they got off to that hot start, and then they just kind of were like, okay, cool. And like that shocked me, because for a team that is supposed to be a cup contender, like that speaks to me of a lack of killer instinct coming back home after you've been embarrassed like that.
You know, I've heard some conjecture from, I mean, it's all media, right? We don't actually know what's happening in the locker room. I heard conjecture of okay, game one, the Oilers were so undisciplined because they were trying to play playoff hockey and they were getting a little bit too, tussly in the corners and they were taking undisciplined penalties. This game was not that, right? This was supposed to be a regular season type of game where you're just putting on a lot of pressure and you're piling up the goals, except for it didn't happen. It was a team that got a goal, went ahead, and then never went ahead for the rest of the game. I'm reading into the chat a little bit, and we do have a post-game press conference at the end, so save your best questions for the end, chat. But I'm getting a lot of, it's the defense, it's the goaltending. I feel like it's not just that. Like, something about the offense is buggy still.
I can't speak to that. You're gonna need the chat to. You're gonna need the Oilers fans in the chat to help you out with that one.
Like, the goaltending is atrocious, right? Like, we can talk about that for a little bit because Skinner last year was the number one. He was the de facto number one. And
Avery has been talking about Stuart Skinner being the number one for so long.
And it's such a great story. It's a hometown kid, he's grew up playing on the Southside Athletic Club, and they always mention that. But there's just something different that happened there. A lot of the Oilers have had kids in the summer. So supposedly, like, oh, is that a thing that's ruining their sleep at night? Like, I don't know.
Patrick Demko has a 1-month-old, so I don't know if you can really rely on that one.
It is not an excuse, right? Like, if you couldn't get a lot of sleep at night, well, on game days, players don't really do much more for morning skate. Like, you could take a nap in the middle of the day. I knew I took a nap in the middle of the day today. Like, there's no excuse for, personal issues unless it's something a little bit more tragic impacting your play as a hockey player, right? Like, this is your job. You should be able to push all that away and focus on the game at large. Some people are saying, you know what, we have had a disappearance of key guys from last season. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he disappeared a little bit in the playoffs. He obviously did have a beautiful snipe tonight, but yeah, Nuge has been kind of stapled to the wing now compared to his, natural center position. I think Connor Brown so far has not really worked out as an experiment. And Kane, when he's with McDavid, he just looks so slow. And something is weird because McDavid cannot find wingers that work with him that aren't wearing number 29 and named Leon Draisaitl. Like, it's weird, but it's a situation that the Oilers have tried to address for 5-6 years now, and it still has no answer.
At what point do you just only play them together?
That has been the nuclear option for so long, and every single Oilers coach seems like they default to that whenever they're down in a game and it's the third period. Like, we've seen this story in and out. Like, it just doesn't work. Draisaitl's running his own line absolutely fine, right? Like, the Nugent-Hopkins, Hyman, and Draisaitl line, they were buzzing for a lot of the game. Yeah. But just, now McDavid is kind of like this issue of we can't find wingers for this guy. And
which is crazy.
It's crazy. He's the best player in the world. How many people have said, if you stuck me, like a guy who plays beer league every now and then on the ice with McDavid, I'll just tap in a couple of goals. It doesn't work like that. It just isn't that simple. Sorry, I was just about to mention. Sam Lafferty. There were rumors that the Oilers wanted to trade for Sam Lafferty as an option. Like, the price, I believe, was Desharnais, a defenseman who didn't skate tonight, and we didn't do the deal. I don't remember what the deal actually was. How did the
fifth round pick?
A fifth
round pick for Sam Lafferty.
Like, it just doesn't make sense. Obviously, this offseason, the Oilers were extremely cap-strapped, but that's not an excuse anymore, right? This is the last year of Ken Holland's contract. And if he doesn't make a mark, this is it, right? Like he's gonna have to ride off into the sunset, because I don't think he has another 2, 3, 4, 5 years in him.
I think he should have ridden off to the sunset some time ago.
Back when the salary cap just came in, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's shift.
It's kind of astonishing how long some of the people in that front office have stuck around.
The hilarious thing was earlier we obviously did the home opening, staff introductions and all that. Dustin Schwartz, the goaltending coach for the Oilers, has been here for, I believe, 10 years now. And the Oilers have had goalie troubles for 10 years. I don't understand how the man keeps his job. Like, I don't know if it's someone he knows, because the organization has changed general managers many times throughout that period.
That's bizarre, because honestly, one of the it's like the flip side for the Canucks, right? Like, one of the few things that has worked out for the Canucks over the last 7 to 8 years is having Ian Clark. That's pretty much been the only consistently good thing.
Like, there are some goalie coaches in the NHL that just seem like they're absolute godsends, right? Any goalie that enters their system, they just whisper the magic words, they sprinkle the magic dust, and they immediately have like a 920 save percentage for a guy that was originally considering like, oh, maybe this is an AHLer from now on. There's just a lot of things that haven't changed in Edmonton over the years. Obviously, this game was way better than the first game of the season, but it's still not enough. And if the Oilers don't make a change quick, Draisaitl did mention in one of the interviews after the first game that sometimes you just need to be smacked around a little. Like, if they don't change in the next little bit, they're gonna be smacked around again. I think the next team up is Nashville. So they're, again, like this rebuilding team. If they lose the next game to Nashville, it is going to be a huge issue. Like the Oilers, we might be looking at, you know, a team that's going to be in a wild card position.
That's crazy. That takes me to my question, which is kind of for you and for the chat. And it's a question for both fan bases. So for you, we're 2 games in. The Oilers are 0-2. You've got a lot of doubt, but like, it's still only 2 games in. At what point does this become a serious concern? Because, you know, the Canucks started 0-7 last year, and like, that was the end of the season. Like, you knew after starting 0-7, like, the ability to come back and actually contend for playoffs was going to be really hard. And like, conversely, for the Canucks fans in the chat, I want to know, 2 games in, they're 2-0. They looked really good the first night. They looked pretty good tonight, but got dominated offensively in terms of the shots, and like, kind of hung in there. At what point do you think I should start really believing in this team, and not just like I'm enjoying it, but like this is actually going right?
Hope springs eternal type of deal.
Yeah.
I think let's start with the Canucks, because we've talked Oilers for a lot, and I feel sorry for kind of shifting the conversation towards that. But I think the Canucks have beat the Oilers twice now. One in a blowout, one in a very tight game where they were, I think, outplayed for the most part. The next big test is they're going on a road trip, from what I can see. Tampa, Florida, like, those are teams that, again, if you can beat those teams, whether it's a tough, like, barely gritted out win or like another blowout, I think there's genuine hope that's going to be in Vancouver. And you know, planning the parade might be a little too early, but like, there is if they win those 2 games, I think I will put Vancouver in the top 3 in the Pacific at the end of the season.
Wow. So
let's hear
I
Vancouver.
think they have a very good chance of starting the season 3-0, because they play the Flyers next, and that's I think a game they should win. But I think you're right that it's the Lightning and the Panthers that are the real test. And if they come out of that even 1-1, and they start this season 4-1, I may be forced to feel some limited hope.
Like, I don't know how many years it's been since you were able to say that statement. I have faith in the Vancouver Canucks making the playoffs and making a run for it.
Yeah.
But
And
like,
then they're going to make a fool of me, because that's what's going to happen.
but this is also, I think, a great thing for the fan base, because from what I understand, Pettersson has kind of made it a statement where he's saying, if we're not contending, I've been here for so long, if we're not contending, I most likely will not be sticking around. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I'm not part of the Vancouver market, but if you wanted to quickly touch on that before we moved on to the Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation, right? Like, I am never going to be one of the fans who's like, I am mortally offended that he said that it's like, this is not a Ryan Kessler situation where you had a multitude of success and you dipped at the first sign of trouble. This is like a very different scenario where he's never been given the opportunity to win. And he's never really had a team that's been run by anyone really competent enough to put them in a position to win. And so for me, that makes perfect sense. He's young enough that he can still go on to have like an insane career if he goes to a winning team that is actually a contender. The interesting part of it that is the piece that's playing out on 32 Thoughts of like Elliot Friedman just hearing things I like from both sides. And like the bizarre twist of like, oh, maybe the Canucks aren't that committed to Elias Pettersson as well, which is the dumbest thing anyone has ever said, right? Like that is actually an absurd statement. And it's just, to me, it's all kind of noise, because look, it's actually kind of the ideal scenario for Canucks fans. The Canucks need to be run in a way and coached in a way that is competent enough for them to win and give him faith. But Elias Pettersson also needs to have a contract year, right? Like, contract years are the best years for a player. So if the team can play to a bare minimum level of improvement that he can be like, okay, this is improving, and he has an absolutely insane year, this should work out very well for them.
Yeah, like I don't know about
only be positives, and somehow it's like, as with everything else the Canucks do, it's somehow this huge dramatic storyline that it really shouldn't be.
Like, last season was a whole, like, the way that the Canucks did business was hilarious, right? It was like the laughing stock of the league last season. And I really, really hope, for Pettersson's sake and for the Canucks' sake, that this year goes well for them, because I hate the Canucks. As a guy who grew up watching the Sedins dominate like a very, very young and scrawny Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I hate the Canucks. But watching like a neighbor implode on themselves is just not a great feeling either. So for that, like, almost humanitarian way of thinking, I'm gonna say, okay, I hope things work out for them. And
you're a better person than I am. I find it immensely satisfying watching the Flames on the Oilers collapse.
Oh yeah, for the Flames, yeah, forget them. Yeah, they can burn. I think with the Pettersson contract, I don't know what the number would be. I'm thinking it's gonna be like a 9-8 sort of range if it's a longer term deal. Like, what do you think on that front?
I think it's got to be higher than that. It depends. Look, it's going to depend on how the contract year goes. It's going to be at least a 9. I think if he has a massive contract year, you're probably looking more at like 11.
Yeah, I think very easily.
If Rasmus Dahlin is making 11, I realize they play totally different positions, but like, if you're looking at core players and like what they mean to a team, you look at what the core on every other team is playing, and the fact that he is for sure a top 10 center in this league.
Yeah.
He should be making more than 10.
I think that is a fair assessment. And what I love is, Sam, I think we just got you to hope for a career season for Elias Pettersson.
Of course I hope for a career season. Like, it is only a good thing for the Canucks and for hockey in general if he has a career season.
Yep, guys gotta get paid. Okay,
I am always in favor of players securing the bag.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers now, because there is another player who is going to make a big splash when he has to re-sign. That's Leon Draisaitl. There's only so much time. I think the negotiations can start next summer. So there is this pressure to win before his $8 million contract is up, because Lord knows it's going to be difficult once that happens. Looking at the schedule going ahead, how deep do we have to get before I start considering the Oilers to be genuinely concerning? I think there's a little bit of leeway. The Oilers are a team that has had historically a very strong second half to the season. So January and onwards. The implosion always seemed to happen in December, where, you know, it would go on this like 3-4 game losing streak. It might just happen early, like if we lose to, God forbid, Nashville and Philadelphia. But if that happens and we go on a 4-game losing streak to start the season, I'm still not that concerned, because we do have McDavid, we do have Draisaitl. You know, if this is a little bit of fatigue due to some injuries, hopefully that will start to heal up over time. I'm only going to be concerned if, honestly, we start losing all the way down to like the Heritage Classic, because the last thing I would want is to be in the same room with Audie and Peter and have to listen to them talk about how Calgary whooped us in the outdoor game. We're all going to that game. We're all going to be in the same room. It would be insufferable if that happens.
I would just be like, I'm sick.
I'm gonna call
come.
in. It's like, you're in the stand. I see you. I can see your seat from here. No,
That's
I'm
my
going
twin.
home.
It's my cousin.
Yeah, I think all the way up till October, the end of October, that's when I would start being concerned if there is a massive losing streak. The Oilers have gotten it done before, with 1 month being just like a write-off. So if we have a whole month write-off in October, I'm like, okay, there goes all the leeway. You're gonna have to make up a lot of ground. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's not as dire as the Canucks start. I mean, listen, if you guys go 0-7, it is going to be dire, mostly just for the fan base. Even if they can play themselves out of that, it's miserable, right? But for the Canucks last year, starting 0-7, you knew they couldn't climb out of that. Like, there was no way that roster was going to climb out of that hole. But you're right that for the Oilers, there is way more leeway there. I would say, yeah, I would say that by the end of October, I would be very concerned, but like maybe still hopeful. It would depend on how November goes.
Yeah, November, if it lasts until November, that is when it's going to be concerning. I think you're right.
And if the losing is like 0.750 goaltending the whole way, right? Like that is a much more concerning issue than like just generally not looking that good.
Oh yeah, the city would riot. Like it would be a situation where we're calling up like, Calvin Pickard, come up. You're the number one now. Unfathomable, right? We are running pretty long, so I'm going to start transitioning the show. We're going to start wrapping up. But this season, we are starting to do some post-game presser questions. So I've already put the request out in chat. I'm seeing a couple come in, but I think the one that's most interesting for me is from Mike Mountaintop. Will Jay Woodcroft get fired?
Like, at some point, yes, obviously. No coach is going to coach forever. Sorry to be facetious. I think it kind of ties into our question earlier, where it's going to depend on what the rest of this month looks like. But this team is too good to perform badly.
Yeah, like if there is an insistence on this system that doesn't seem to be working, it's not going to end well for Woody. I think everyone realizes in Edmonton, Woodcroft and any coach that steps into this team will have to rely on McDavid and Draisaitl, their leadership. If they don't jive with what the coach is selling, this team is gonna pull them, right? Like Woody, don't get me wrong, I think he's a great story, and he is still a very young coach. He clearly got out-coached in the playoffs last kind of 2 postseasons, and that's fine. That's a developmental thing. You can learn from that. But in the regular season, if we keep this streak up, he might have to be just a sacrificial pawn. He might just be the whipping boy, unfortunately. Yeah, depressing. It's only 2 games, says Jamie Hanley. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Let's see if we can grab another question here. I saw one a lot earlier in the chat that I kind of lost. I'm going to see if I can find that.
While you look for that, I'm going to answer Eric Edwards' question that is not at all hockey related. But yes, I will absolutely be watching the Lessons in Chemistry TV show.
What is this?
Oh, it's a TV show with Brie Larson based on a book about a woman scientist in the 50s. And it was really well done book if you're looking for something to read. And I think the TV show is going to be really good.
Right. Sorry, what was the name again?
Lessons in Chemistry.
Lessons in Chemistry. Oh, there we go. I think I found it here. Leon Draisaitl, if he does not decide to extend in Edmonton, there's obviously every team in the NHL will want him, but there is probably going to be like a $13-14 million price tag on his name. There's not that many teams that could do it, but if you were in the position of the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, Draisaitl says, I don't want to re-sign here. Do you even try to trade him? Do you just let him walk to the market and say, you've got to try, right? You've
got to try. Like you cannot let Leon Draisaitl walk for nothing.
Nothing, right? Like
you would get skewered, and rightfully so.
Absolutely. Like there's just, I think, an inexcusable, if Leon Draisaitl says, this franchise has lost me so badly, even though we've been to the playoffs year in and year out, that I do not agree with management and I have to leave. If management doesn't take that opportunity to go, okay, we have to bury all of our mistakes, we can't let any of this get to light, it is inexcusable. I think literally the owner of the Edmonton Oilers would jump in and go, okay, I'm selling the team. Daryl Cates would wrap it up and say, I don't want this garbage fire.
This might be your best case scenario then.
I
don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he will. The bromance with McDavid is too strong.
Honestly, yeah, like Draisaitl stayed at McDavid's all summer, and that is the saving grace, I think, for Oilers fans. It is the one thing that is keeping everyone's hopes alive to say, even if we don't win a cup, if we at least get a little bit close, and Draisaitl and McDavid know that having each other around is going to just absolutely make their careers legendary, they will stay in Edmonton. That being said, though, who knows? We're talking on the back of 0-2 after the first 2 games to the Vancouver Canucks. We could be in for a bonkers season. Let's do one more question. Let's get into the Canucks side of things. Next Gen Leap, how many goals will Brock Besser have this year?
Let me tell you, when he went down the tunnel tonight, immediately, my first thought was, this guy cannot catch a break. Like, it has just been issue after issue, injury after injury, like off ice, like just really tragic things happening with his dad. Like, this guy needs a break. And I think every single Canucks fan was super happy game 1 to see that offensive explosion. I'm gonna say he hits 30 this year.
So I'm not huge into the Canucks stats, obviously. So what sort of like career high are we looking at for
Actually, you know what?
Brock Besser?
That's a good question.
Like if you think 30, like obviously based on what I'm seeing, last season was difficult. It was tough in so many ways. But what I'm seeing from Brock Besser is maybe a system that's working out for him. Maybe it's Tocchet's influence, something like that. I do think he's gonna put up 30.
His career high is 29.
29. So
in his first full season, rookie season,
very much so on the mark there. Like I think 30
and has
should
not
be
really. His next highest is 23.
Yeah.
So I think he hits at least 30 this year. He only needs to score 26 more.
That's true. The first game gave him plenty. Yeah, I think that's very manageable. It all depends on the next couple games, right? Like, is this a flash in the pan? If not, like I could see Brock Besser, if he's getting more power play minutes and such, I could see him getting to 40. Like, honestly, I think Brock Besser is a good player. He's just had so many ups and downs in his career at the most like inopportune times.
I mean, the hardest thing for him to date has been the recurring wrist injury, which he's had since college. But I will also say, I think so far, this is the best his wrist has looked since his first season. And it's early on in the season, but like even in previous seasons, off season, like coming into the season, you could see there was something off, and it doesn't look like it's bothering him right now.
I mean, I always hope for the health of players. There should be never a chance when anyone risks or anyone wishes injury on any player in the NHL. I just hope that he isn't feeling his best the next time the Oilers play the Canucks. With that, I think we'll start to wrap up the show. Sam, do you have any closing points you'd like to make?
I don't want to jinx it, man. I hope that my hope for the season is that every post game will be this fun, because it was hard. It was hard to do these post games for a very long time last year.
You know what? That is actually not too bad when you consider like some of the other hosts on the channel. Like Andrews had to stick it out for many years.
Yeah,
but
they had a cup run. I don't feel that bad.
That's true. They got their chance, right? For me, I think the only thing I want to stress is I try to maintain positivity. Oilers fans out there, if you are still listening, don't worry. It's 2 games. Like, things can and will bounce back. This team is not the way that they look right now. They won't be this way forever. I know that makes for a less entertaining show. So I always love to give the disclaimer at the end. But if you liked the episode, give us a like. Subscribe to the SDPN if you want to see more content like this. It really helps the algorithm present our show to more viewers, hockey fans from across Canada and the US. Sam, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at SamanthaCP_.
And you can find me on Twitter at Dennis Lee, YEG, 2 N's in Dennis. It's not Denis. Next game for Vancouver is Tuesday the 17th against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. It's a 3 p.m. Pacific time start.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Everybody's going to sneak out of work.
Is that going to be the first show for Parker? I know the original plan was to have all the hosts from Vancouver.
So it is.
On.
I don't actually know if Parker is doing that show. I assume he is, because it's an all hosts show, but I don't know that we've explicitly asked him to commit to that yet.
It could be one of the rare quad shows for Vancouver.
It will be at least Clay, Kaya, and me, but probably also Parker.
You heard it here first. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be 4 Canucks fans on the show at the same time. Going to be absolute chaos. I'm all for it. On the Edmonton side of things, it's the same day, Tuesday the 17th, but we will be in Nashville. It's a 6 p.m. Mountain Time puck drop. Avery has the show for you on that one. That's it for us tonight. Sam, it was an absolute pleasure hosting the show with you today.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again.
We'll have to do it again. Again, if you love these head-to-head shows, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you love, what you don't like so much. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. That's going to be it for us tonight. On behalf of Sam and myself, thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic evening.